You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Hey entrepreneurs, it's your podcast mogul Phil Better here. I am excited for this episode as I know you are. Before we jump into this episode, I'm going to ask you if you are also a podcaster and you're looking to grow your podcast or monetize your podcast, make sure you stay till the end of the episode. I have a special deal for you, or a special offer, if you will. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital
Ladies and
Entrepreneur
gentlemen,
Podcast.
welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and today I'm excited to speak to our guest today. They are currently the GM of direct brands at Vendasta, which acquired Yesware in 2022, where our guest was the CEO, so he helped manage that sale. But before that, he helped build from scratch to 400 million annually Wayfair's B2B business, as well as help guide them through their launch as a publicly traded company. He has a MBA from Yale, a BS from the University of Illinois, and he's on his way to be the #1 endorsed person on LinkedIn for humor. So please put your hands together for our guest, Joel Stevenson. Joel, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, the BS comes important for the LinkedIn part too. So,
Joel, how you've had a very varied career. You've helped in sales. You helped build a whole division for a company. Could you introduce yourself? Give us a little bit more robust introduction.
yeah, I started my career in sales, and many moons ago with the idea that actually I was originally planning to be a finance major, or I was a finance major, and I sort of got redirected by this guy that sort of argued that no matter what you do, you're in sales, and that's a good place to start a career if you don't have like a very strong point of view about something else you're going to do. So I did that. And that was great. And eventually I worked in mostly technology, enterprise software type organizations. Then .com happened. So it was sort of great up until that point. Ended up joining a couple of companies that were laying people off, and eventually sort of got the message that I should do something different. Went back and got my MBA with the idea of like trying to sort of reinvent myself from being more of a customer facing person to being more of a quantitative person. So I did that. And then I joined a sales consulting firm called ZS Associates for a while. And then ultimately ended up back in sort of the startup business with a supply chain company out of Chicago, which was pretty interesting for a while, but the business model had some issues. But the thing that did was that ultimately led me to this company called CSN Stores, which had 300, individual microsites selling, furniture and all kinds of other stuff, which later became Wayfair many years later. So, great 7.5 year run there. It eventually got a little bit too big for me. So I did a bunch of different jobs there, which was great. The last job I did was sort of an outgrowth of something that I started earlier, which is this B2B business that you mentioned earlier, which was awesome. But eventually the company just started to feel a little bit too big for me. And so I decided that I would instead go and try something new. So I took a little bit of time off. And one of the ways that we drove so much, such impressive numbers on the B2B side was we invested heavily in technology as applied to the sales productivity problem. And so that's kind of what, in a roundabout way, brought me to Yesware. We had an investor and a board member in common there, and that's kind of how that's kind of how I got to where I am.
That's a huge journey, in different roles, which probably gave you a great base to be the CEO of a company during a transition, up to when they got sold. What is it like going through a sale? Like because you're going from a relatively, I don't want to say small brand, because I'm not well aware of Yesware, but you have this company that you help grow and then it gets sold. What is that process like?
Yeah, well, it was maybe slightly different for me in the sense that I was with the business, over 5 years at the point at which it got sold, but I wasn't the founder of the business.
Mm-hmm.
The co-founder and CTO is still in the business today, but the CEO left when I took over. We sort of had an orderly transition of power, if you will. And he went to start another company, which he recently sold to American Express. So he's been very successful, as he sort of sat on the board of Yesware as the chairman. So he sort of remained involved in the business, but from more of an arm's length. And so one of the things that ended up happening on the Yesware side was we're in a very competitive market. This market has had a tremendous amount of capital raised in it. I think between probably the people that I would consider our 4 closest competitors, I think have probably raised in excess of $1 billion at this point. And never mind the fact that Salesforce itself has a big footprint in this part of the market, and it's HubSpot. There's a lot of very well capitalized players that are in this market, and so we had gotten to a point where we were sort of self-sustaining, but not growing at a rate that that I thought was like really going to land us as being one of the winners in the space. And so we started to pick our head up to sort of look around to say, like, all right, well, what would be interesting combinations where this, I think very useful tech that we've built, like what would be a good home for that? And so we started to look around, and Vendasta was actually one of our customers. And so we knew them a little bit. They knew us. They had a roadmap that was what they do is they mostly go to market through agencies. So they have mostly digital agencies, but other folks that sell into large business, small and local business like newspapers, et cetera. And they've built a tech stack for small and local businesses to advertise and get their name out and manage their reputation, all these things. And agencies sort of deliver that in a, either a do it with me or a do it for me format to these small and local businesses. And so as part of that, they were building a more and more robust, you could call it CRM, CRM, ERP, like that type of functionality to allow an agency not only to sort of resell these products and also resell marketplace products, but actually to run their whole agency on this platform. And so they had a vision of CRM that was starting to expand that way. We had a vision of CRM that was actually trying to expand more into the core CRM sort of aspects. So today we integrate with Salesforce.com, and we're starting to move further and further downstream into contacts and accounts and ultimately opportunities. And so the roadmaps lined up nicely. And it seemed to me that this was an area where we could bring our tech into a very sort of specialized area, into a company that's got a lot of momentum with a very interesting sort of customer base. And we could, really do a, 1 + 1 = 3 type scenario.
I like that. And when was this an idea that you had, or was this when at the board that came together, or was it coming from Vendasta about the acquisition?
Well, ultimately, it was, was my call in consultation with the management team that the right thing for the business was to try to find somebody strategic that we could join forces with. And so the board agreed after I explained my point of view about why that was sort of the right thing to do. We weren't out of money. We had plenty of money. And we weren't really burning it at that point. So it was more a question about, how do we position the customer? How do we position this thing for success? I had a mentor a long time ago that said, one of the big roles of the leader is to change the rules of the game in our favor. And that was one of the ways in which I could sort of conceive of trying to change the rules of the game in our favor was to join forces with somebody else.
I like that. I like how you saw that there was a bigger benefit to the company, make the company better and the product, and help the clients with partnering with this bigger brand and merging into an even stronger brand. Um, I want to talk to maybe some other CEOs who are maybe in that place, or people coming into the world with their own company, founders and that. What tip would you have for, moving into becoming a company that's looking to be acquired?
Well, there's an old saying that companies are bought and not sold, and kind of having gone through this process, I could tell you that that really resonates. It's much easier to work with a company that already understands you, that has some affinity for you, that sort of gets it, versus showing up randomly to a bunch of other companies and saying like, hey, this you should be excited about for all these reasons. It's a very different dynamic. Now, both dynamics work. There are very successful the sale process that happen with no one sort of initiating that. It really depends, but I think the most important thing you can do, it's sort of silly to even say it, I guess, but the most important thing you can do to get your company sold is make sure that it's a company worth buying. And so, so then I think some of the questions you have to ask yourself are like, well, what are the things that are appealing about this business? Is it the tech? Is it the people? Is it, strategic customer base? You can ask, and what are there things that we can do to make those even more attractive? And then what are the things that are not attractive? Of like, what would stop somebody from buying this business? Like maybe no audited financial statements, maybe, rapidly running out of money, massive customer churn, poorly thought out, positioning or messaging. Like there's, there are a myriad set of things that could be that. And and so you can, some of those you can perhaps control, or you can sort of make steps to control. Others are very difficult and take a long time to sort of sort out. So I think that the best thing you could do is just sort of be honest with yourself about where things are at. And to me, a huge part of it that I think sometimes entrepreneurs overlook. My old coach used to say this. He used to say this thing about like some entrepreneurs are pathologically optimistic, and that's a great thing about entrepreneurs, right? Because if you really knew the odds going in, there probably wouldn't be a lot of businesses actually started. So this is sort of a necessary. It's a sort of a feature and a bug in some ways, but when it comes time to really take stock of your situation, I think just dealing with reality and understanding what is actually going on is important, and being honest with yourself about, hey, this is not going well. We've tried a bunch of things. It could be better. And the opportunity cost of your time, to move to a different table, whether that's, an acquisition, or whether it's, hey, actually we should shut the company down because it's not only my time, it's all these people's time. And this may not actually work. And we should just try something new, or we should return the money to the investors, or we should go to the investors and say, this isn't working. We need to do something totally different. And we need this much amount. But I think, being willing to sort of call the question can be very difficult for, myriad psychological reasons, escalation of commitment, among the chief ones.
That is some great, like I was starting to have introspective questions about myself when you were talking. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to re-listening to this part and just learning, because that's a really great tip. I think that taking stock of where you are and where your business is always something important for us entrepreneurs to remember, to help us grow and become better. I want to know, in your journey of starting in the sales to managing a sale of an acquisition of a company, do you have any memories of like that cement the why you went down this road, this journey that you're on?
Um, COVID was a bit of a flashpoint for us because what ended up happening was we'd done a bunch of work on the product to make it better and better and better. And we started to see retention getting better. We started to see top of a lot of things were like starting to get better. And then all of a sudden COVID hit and, we lost a good chunk of revenue almost overnight. Where most of our new business comes in via product-led funnel. So we have a lot of individuals, we have people that buy monthly. So while we do have some big enterprise customers like Yelp, that has, thousands of users on Yesware, the average Yesware user is smaller. And so we saw, a bunch of salespeople lost their jobs at the beginning of COVID, and so we never really came. It wasn't like a V-shaped recovery. It started to go back up, but it had just sort of felt like we were just getting momentum. We had lost that momentum. It wasn't clear where the restart was going to sort of come from. And then you sort of look at that versus the competitive market and the dollars that had been raised, and what some of our competitors were doing, the resources that they had that we were sort of competing against. And it just struck me that there certainly was a path where we could have gotten back to, venture capital expected levels of growth, but it was a very, very narrow path. And after COVID, I think the team didn't necessarily have all the gas in the tank that it needed to really go, incredibly hard after the set of things that might have been needed to do it, and do those things thinking that they had a high chance of success, but when reality that, any individual one of those things probably had a low chance.
I like that. What's next for you? What's the next challenge or next goal that you have to reach?
Well, at the moment, my top priority is making sure that the Yesware and Vendasta integration goes well. Vendasta is in a fortunate position where we've been able to acquire a couple other companies as well, and so there's a lot of there's a bunch of interesting things that are starting to happen, but it takes a bit of work and a bit of effort to get those teams kind of together and figure out the motions and cross sells and various go-to-market motions that will change. And so that's currently what I'm focused on, is making sure that Vendasta as a company can make the most out of this acquisition and future acquisitions. And beyond that, then I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have goals of starting your own company, or are you looking to move into maybe another CEO role?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for that. I mean, I think depending on what the opportunity is for an existing company, I would take a look at it when the time is right. I think I increasingly lean towards starting my own business, in the sense that I think it's a tremendous time for entrepreneurship. There's so much disruption that's happening, and all the a massive upsetting of the apple cart between what's going on with the economy, what's going on with AI now, and medicine and robotics and any number of other things. It just strikes me as like it's a pretty cool time to start a business, and you can do so much with a lot less capital and with a lot less people to start with, that I think you can sort of take things pretty far now, much further than you used to be able to before you had to get a bunch of other people involved. So that's pretty interesting to me. So we'll see when the time's right. I'll probably turn my attention to something like that.
And when you do, please make sure you send me an email, because I would love to talk to you about that and growing that next business. Because if you were able to manage the acquisition and help Wayfair become a publicly traded company, like, I am so excited to see what kind of business that you're going to launch, and I know it's going to be a huge success. But I do want to talk. You mentioned, oh, did I just lose it? It was just there. Hate when I lose a question, but
Yeah.
let's talk about AI. Do you see AI coming into your role, and working within Vendasta, or using it in your role?
Yeah, well, we've already integrated Chat GPT or OpenAI, GPT-3 Turbo 5, 3.5 Turbo. I don't know what it is. I think we're on 4, and then it was too slow, so we reverted back or something. But we, we're already. So one of the things that the core Vendasta platform does, it allows people to post on social, allows people to do review management, and so we have some tools now that allow you to quickly generate posts, to quickly generate responses, all of that stuff using these large language models, which is pretty neat and definitely a time saver. On the Yesware side, we don't have any explicit features that enable AI yet, but there's a lot that are kind of on the roadmap that we're talking about. There's for certain there are numerous sales applications of these large language models that you're starting to see people put them out, and we're tinkering with a few, and I imagine that we'll have something before the year is out that's pretty interesting in that area.
Oh, I'm excited. So yes, you're again more than welcome to come back and talk to us about that. We're going to jump to the spark question of the show. From Seek Discomfort, it's to spark conversations with strangers, because they're just simply friends you haven't met yet. So, Joel, what is something you've done that your future self will thank you?
I think maybe that this gets back to some of the humor stuff, but I think I've stopped taking myself and maybe life so seriously. I mean, there are things that I'm very definitely serious about that, but I've had the benefit of spending more time with a mindfulness and meditation practice, and heard from a lot of good people on that. There's my old coach Jerry Colonna. He's got a book called Reboot, which is a great book, and starts to get into some of these comments, and that's been very freeing for me, to just sort of lighten up a little bit and realize that that I'm fine, and there's no the set of things that could be going wrong to me are definitely not going wrong to me, and I've got it so much better than so many other people. And if we hit a number, if we beat a number by 10%, or we drop a number by 10%, like in a given quarter, it maybe doesn't matter that much. The trend's important, the people are important, like what you're trying to build together is important. And just being able to just not, just not be so attached to everything, whether they're numbers or results or really anything for that matter, has been very freeing, and has allowed me to focus, I think, in a much more robust way on what I'm actually doing in sort of an ironic way.
Awesome. Joel, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you, for if they want to see if you can be mentor, you can help them with Vendasta and being implemented into their companies. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Yeah, a couple of ways to do that. If you're interested in Yesware and sales content, you can go to yesware.com. We've got 10 years plus of great sales content. It's all free. You can also start a Yesware trial there. We've got a free tier forever that you can use. On the Vendasta side, you can go to vendasta.com and learn all about Vendasta. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's / Joel Stevenson GM. And I also do a podcast called The Hard Sell if you're interested in selling topics. And you can find that at yesware.com / podcast.
Awesome. Joel, thank you so much for being guest on the show. I can't thank you enough for helping us understand the process of selling a company or being acquired.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think they're all different, and this was certainly a learning experience. But it was a great it's something that if you're an entrepreneur for long enough, you're probably going to go through. So worthwhile getting educated on it.
Excellent. To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below so that you can connect with Joel. And definitely, if you're into the sales, check out his podcast so that it can help you take it to the next level. And remember to always invest in yourself.
Hey, digital entrepreneurs, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Now, if you're looking to take your podcast to the next level, like most of these entrepreneurs have taken their business to the next level, to scale it, if you will, make sure you check out my brand new newsletter. Links are down below. It is called the Monetization Mogul Syndicate newsletter, or it could be Feel Better Stories of Monetization Moguls, or Making Moguls is what I do. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. But I want to thank you very much for listening. And as always, remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.